What does it feel like that you're going down for a murder you didn't commit? When you spoke about running over this guy's legs, you'd got the wrong person.
I was led to believe that he had done it. I feel that I owe that man massive amounts.
Now, Banged Up, for anyone that didn't see it.
Yeah, don't start. I know what you're referring to.
I fell in love with you on that show.
Thank you very much for that.
Johnny Mercer, please explain the scene that I laughed
John's
at.
great.
Yeah.
Lovely man.
Yeah.
So John has got some issues about... No one likes to smell another man's excrement, does it? And John wanted a cigarette, so I had a tube up my anal. I'll put it in the safe where it's safe. So I get strip searched, they can't put their finger up my backside. I pulled it out. Normally I could have got it out a lot cleaner. I'd have kept it in tissue and just wiped off, but bing bong bing, there we go. I pulled it out with a bit of excrement on it. Johnny Mercer he's got a bit of OCD, and he smashed the windows, didn't he?
He did.
As much as he was going nuts about the smell, I said, oh, you're smoking it now, aren't you? Because I wouldn't have known that as a fella unless someone had told me.
Wow.
Because he had a figure, had the lot done, he had his boobs done, his
Yeah.
breasts, and he had long hair, he had a little wiggle. I swear, a relative of mine, he said, when you look at one bum, they're all the same. There was a fellow in the prison I was in, he wanted to be known as a cup. There's a saying, if it don't stick to your lips, it's a goer. That means there's no sugar in it, get it in ya.
Right, Kevin Lane.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you for having me.
I'm over the moon to have you.
Well, I feel honoured to say that. Very
No,
lucky.
it's true. And as you know, because I've told you about 4 times, I've watched so much of your content with various different people. And I've got to give Liam a shout out because Liam is my agent these days. He just keeps sending me really good guests. So we were chatting about something else actually. And he went, oh my God, I've got a really good guest for you. And of course I knew who you were. So I was like, yes, please. If we can get that arranged, that would be amazing. And here you are. It's only a couple of weeks later. So I'm really grateful because you've travelled and it's a bit of an effort on a Sunday because it is a Sunday for those that don't know.
Can I just say that Liam is an excellent interviewer.
He's brilliant, isn't he?
He's fantastic. But yes, I want to give him a shout out. Liam Tough, excellent.
He is. He's so good. And his channel is testament to that.
Great dancer.
He's a great dancer. He is. He's got it all going on.
Right.
And I think the thing is with Liam, although this is actually about you, but the thing is with Liam is that everybody seems to love him. And we were just saying this a minute ago, actually, before we started, that he stands for what he believes in. Whether you agree with him or not, he's firm in his beliefs. He's really solid as a friend as well. And I think, he really, if he loves someone, he really loves them. It's not just half-hearted. And I think that's a very old school way of being. And I see that a lot of that with you. I don't know you that well, but I can see those old school principles, very grounded in who you are as a person, very stable in that, despite your life story, which is so... Look, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people have heard your story, so this is not the first time you're telling it. For those that have never seen you before, my audience may be slightly different to the one that you're used to just because of the job that I do. So it attracts a slightly different demographic, but that's not to say that it won't attract some of the people that have seen you before. The reason I say that is because not everybody will know your story, and I'm going to refer to Liam because there's so much. You've done 2 episodes with Liam. In fact, you've done another recently, which isn't out yet. So it's 3 altogether, if I'm right. And I want to refer to Liam's episode for the nitty-gritty of your backstory. But for those that would rather read, I'm going to hold this up to the camera. So this is Kev's book.
Great. You got your hand in front of the title.
Oh, my gosh. So let me just read that title out. Fitted Up and Fighting Back. So that gives you a bit of an overview for those that don't know Kev's story of what this is about. It's got hundreds of reviews on Amazon already. It's been very well received. I cannot wait to read it. And I can't wait for you all to meet Kev today. So,
thank you.
Give me a little bit of the background of why this is called Fitted Up and Fighting Back, because I think it's really important for it to come from your mouth, not mine.
First of all, The Guardian, the editor-in-chief, Nick Hopkins, named that.
I mean, that's pretty
he
cool.
suggested, calling it Fitted Up and Fighting Back. So that was, thank you to Nick for that. The Guardian campaigned for me for many years for a miscarriage of justice. So I was sent to prison for a murder that was considered to be a contract killing. There's certain restrictions on me, so I have to be careful what I talk about now. I'm respectful to the family of the deceased, and I'm mindful of that. So I was sent to prison. I've campaigned for many years now as a result of the wrongful conviction. I've had Duncan Campbell, the late Duncan Campbell, campaign for me, covered my case at length.
Yeah.
God rest Duncan. I'm very, very...
If you can hear that in the background, it's Kev's phone. He's a very popular man. No, leave it on.
No, leave it. So
this is real.
I thought I'd put it on silent, but either way, I have put it on silent. So Duncan came and interviewed me, and he asked some questions. He interviewed a number of police officers, I think 2, and Sally Chidjoy, former BBC journalist, BBC Look East, she interviewed some journalists, former police officers, serving and non-serving, all said that I was innocent.
It's absolutely, I mean, I've watched your story at least 4 or 5 times, and I'm still gobsmacked by the fact that this happened, because as you start to delve into your story, as I start to sort of do that with you, we'll find out that some of what you've done, you've admitted to, and, you've been convicted of, but the contract killing is, you were fitted up, and you've got a lot of people that, I said this to you, this is so important, for those that are watching or listening, Kev is an actual gentleman, and you can't not love him immediately. You can't not love him, because he's got such a beautiful, humble, grounded energy. I said this at the beginning, and intuition and instinct, it never ever lies. Energy never lies. And so I've heard you tell the story, and I know everyone believes you, and I believe you as well. And I think it's scary, because if you've got kids, you know how easy it is for kids to get involved in trouble now, especially now more than ever. The idea that you could be fitted up for something and end up doing such a long stretch, it's just so sad, because as you said respectfully to the deceased as well, that family didn't get justice either. Like, no one's a winner here.
The family haven't got justice, but sometimes they feel they have, because somebody you have to hang a coat on a peg somewhere, don't you?
So for their own, to settle themselves, they've sort of gone with...
Yeah, and again, I wish I could talk about it more, but the book will explain it.
Yeah.
It's simpler like that.
What does it feel like when you're standing there knowing that you're going down for a murder you didn't commit?
You just can't believe that it's happening to you. How did this happen? How have I ended up here? Am I to blame for ending up here? What have I done wrong to end up here? Wrong place, wrong time, or just a victim of circumstances. Corrupt police officer Christopher Spackman. Yeah. It took years to unfold what's taken place, and that he had a grudge against me, the corrupt police officer. He said, "I'll have you one day, Lane." He arrested me for car ringing many years before, and I remember he came and arrested me at my house. I lived in a private road, private close. He said, "You've got a better house than I have." I was only 21. And I said to him, cockily, "Well, change your job then." He was a detective sergeant at the time on a good income. Yeah. I was just being flippant. At the time, I just had an extension on the house. I had brick walls and wrought iron railings, and that window, and I obviously had some money at the time.
Yeah, you were doing well.
When I was 21, I bought my first property when I was 18.
That's
and I turned
impressive.
it over in 6 months and earned £16,500 in it. I was 18 years of age, but I'm a worker. I've always worked hard.
Yeah.
Let's get that correct. I had an unsecured overdraft on my wages when I was 20 for £15,000 a month.
Yeah.
So unsecured that was.
I mean, that's mental.
It's not bad, It was a few years ago. So I believe you put a good day's graft in, you'll receive well for that.
Yeah, you do. In the end, sometimes it takes longer, but I think you've got to have the work ethic. Otherwise, you're never going to, I think it's so true, you're
I
never going to
cleaned the
make
kitchen
it.
in prison for £7 a week or £10 a week some years ago, and I cleaned that where you could see your face out the sink.
Because you take pride in your work.
Pride in what I do.
Yeah.
And not only that, then people, I realised some years later, well, some years earlier when I was working as for a builder and in a chip shop at 12 years old when I was in a paper shop, and 13 I went into a baker's at 5:30 in the morning, and from 14 I went into a chip shop. But I realised pretty quick, and before that I was doing gardening and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I realised that you'd have grass up here and I'd chop it all down, and I was like 7 or 8 at a time. And people couldn't believe that a 7 or 8 year old boy had done that. And then they'd ask me to come back and keep their garden tidy, and there wasn't no bleeding Chelsea flower show, but there was no weeds in the mud.
No.
And the grass was kept short.
Which was doing them a massive favour.
And I realised the gratitude for that from the £5 that they was giving me then at that age. You know, like 1970s, I was 74, 75, I was getting that in my hand, and a tenner and things. That's a lot of money back then.
It was. It is now for a little kid.
A lot of money then. So I learned very early on in my life that through hard work you got great reward.
I love that.
From that, thank you. And then from that, I went through childhood. So we go back a little bit from the person that made me. So we come into nature and nurture, which would be a bit of your territory now.
Yeah.
And we were just discussing earlier before we started the interview that I realised as a young boy, and I asked you a question, didn't I?
Yeah.
I was interviewed the other day by Martin Frizzell and the eminent Professor David Wilson.
Yeah.
And they questioned me about something, and nicely or respectfully they questioned me, and a thought process came up in my head then, and I thought, well, hold on a minute. I had a brother who got run over, and we were both very young. I was in the infants, so was he.
Yeah.
And he used to have to wear this crash helmet at school to protect his head because he had plates in it.
Bless him.
Yeah. My brother's 2 years older than me. I walked around a corner of a building, and my brother was surrounded by his his school friends, again all 2 years older than me, and they were giving my brother a very difficult time. So I am a very naturally kind, caring person, and I love doing impersonations as a child, and I had my own ventriloquist doll, a puppet doll. And my mum would say, go on, Kevin, do your impersonations. And I'd do Frank Spencer, Norman Wisdom, and my mum's friends would all be laughing at me and thinking, oh, he's cute. And I'd loved all of that. So I was a happy-go-lucky child. So I've walked around the corner of this building, and I've seen these fellas giving my brother a hard time. And I immediately set about two of them. I hit one and I hit the other. So was that because of the love for my brother that I did that? And the injustice of what they were doing, the cruelty that they were inflicting upon my brother, who had already been nearly died from the car accident that he had.
Yeah.
And that straight away evoked an emotion out of me to defend my brother.
Yeah.
Through love.
Yeah.
And the injustice.
Yeah.
However, if you was to do the same action in your early teens or as an adult, they would look upon that as...
with intent.
With intent.
Yeah.
But you're doing it through love.
Yeah. I find it a really difficult area because I think if you look at knife crime now, so to answer the question, you look at knife crime now, obviously these kids don't think through what they're doing. 13, 14 years old, they put a knife in someone's neck or through the heart. I genuinely believe that 9 times out of 10, they don't believe the other person's going to end up dead. No, they haven't thought it through. So it's a reaction.
Or 99% of them.
99%, that's a very good point. They haven't thought it through. It's a reaction either as a defence because this kid at school's been calling their best mate something, or they've seen them, pick on someone, or they've been picked on themselves, or... Not mature. They haven't thought things through.
Life experience.
All of those really important things. Kids with weapons are a really dangerous thing because they do not have logic, analysis and good decision making. So going back to you as a little boy, your brother's already been badly hurt to the point where he now has to wear this helmet to protect his head. You're only 5 at the time. So again, you're not able to fully understand this.
A bit younger, about 4 to 5.
About 4 or 5, so really tiny, a baby still.
Yeah, I was, yeah.
But you know that something bad's happened. You just don't know the extent or the complexity of that. You also, as you say, are a very kind, loving person naturally. And I think the natural protector, and I sort of said to you earlier, the way that the limbic response is in the brain, the emotional response, is driven by fear and pleasure. So the first thing is, my brother's already been hurt. He's got to wear this helmet to protect him. These people are picking on him. I love my brother. I've got to protect him. That was an innate response in you, even at 4 or 5 years old, which again could be, we talked briefly about epigenetics off camera, could be a genetic expression where you're just more naturally aligned with protection, defense, justice. And then, of course, you get the reward for protecting him. So your brain is now flooded with the pleasure of protecting your brother, the reward. So that stays in the nervous system. Now, the nervous system is fixed, or it can be changed. But let's just say if we never touched it, it's pretty much foundationally made by 7 years old. So by 7, if you've protected and had the reward for protecting your brother a couple of times and you see that you've kept him safe, it feels good. You feel motivated to do that again. You could see how the protector part in you, because we're all made of parts, would be quite strong. So I think seeing that happen to your brother, knowing that you love him, knowing that he's already been hurt, and knowing that you want to protect him, that became a real driving force for your brain, not just as a conscious thought, but as a nervous system response. And I think when I say it's fixed like a foundation, I always say to people when I'm doing my job, imagine the foundation of who you are is like a magnet. And now the energy that you are emitting, because we emit about 5 feet. When people say you've got a lovely aura, Kev, that's your energy that you emit. It's the frequency of who you are. It's the magnet that's been laid. So your magnet early on was the protector. And so now, naturally, you're drawn to people to protect, and they're drawn to you to protect them. So you see how, I always say this, repetition's recognition. The more you repeat a behaviour or a thought or an action, and the more it's rewarded, the more you're inclined to do it.
And is that the way you come from? You do something for 21 days, it becomes a habit.
And then 90 days it becomes automatic.
Yeah.
So if you were always seen as a protector now, because if you're 4 or 5 and you've taken on the big boys, even at that age, because I remember being that age, like the other kids are like, oh yeah, Kevin, he's hard, even then. And so people go to you to protect them if that's your natural energy, which is a blessing and a curse. Because what then happens is it almost becomes this principle, this duty, this becomes your identity. So once your identity's fixed, you can't just change it, not until you're a bit older and a bit wiser. And that part of the brain that can break that down and analyse that isn't fully developed until you're 25. So it's only at the age of 25 that you start going, I shouldn't have done that. Perhaps I should have stepped back there. But then by that point, your identity, your temperament, your personality is fixed and known to everybody. And it takes a lot of work to undo that.
So, yeah, I went to prison at 21 for kidnapping.
Yes. So tell me a bit about that, because, we hear the words kidnapping. Well, that's one word, actually. But we hear that and we go, oh, my God, he must be an animal. But actually, in reality, some kidnapping is different to others. So tell me about the one that you're involved in.
It's been said that I've tortured people. I haven't tortured people.
No.
What I may have done to them was torture us in terms of the pain.
Yeah.
But I've never tortured people, sat there and committed acts of violence against them.
Yeah.
Repeatedly to get the right answers. I have, for instance, William Gillelly, who I kidnapped him.
Yeah.
And I ran him over a few times, put the wheels over his legs and stuff like that, just to get the right answers out of him, to make sure the information he gave me was correct, so that it was a protective factor to say, be careful what you do from here, because we've got these addresses now.
Yeah.
From you. So that's why I put the car over his legs to get information.
Yeah.
Well, I did kidnap him, but I was 21 then, because I was led to believe that he had, at that time, put a knife to a lady and her baby and said, I will cut you and I will cut the baby. I was also led to believe that they was part of a football gang, and that this gang had then been to the offices where a young girl had informed on them for stealing £100,000 worth of equipment. The owner, or 2 owners of that, went to the police. The police didn't have enough evidence. The gang then came back to threaten the girl again. The owners of them, one in particular that I was friends with, came to me and said, can you have a word with these lads, Kevin? This is what they've done. They've come back. They've tried to get in the building. Yeah, no problem. Give me the details.
Protector again.
I'll come down and have a word with them. It wasn't for money. You have to get this right now. This is a case of they've done what?
Yeah.
No problem. And then I have no idea until talking to you and Professor Wilson and Martin Frizzle that this thought pattern's come about. I've always thought in my head, well, you've done wrong, I can do something to put that right.
Yeah, it's more than that.
So if the police can't stop you, there's always a certain person in the area or persons
Yeah.
that the police can't, they haven't been able to stop what's taken place. Yet this person can, because he's thought about in the local community as a John Wayne.
Yeah, you're right, yeah.
I thought he was my idol after my father.
Yeah.
So John Wayne, you stand up for the, Rooster Cogburn. I used to love it. That's my favourite film, Rooster Cogburn. Anybody that hasn't watched it, watch it.
You heard it here
the
first.
John Wayne episode, not because it was re-shown, wasn't it? It was refilmed.
Yes, that's right.
And I feel that I used to love that about the good of the man.
Yeah.
Sticking up for the right people and against the arseholes of the world.
Yeah.
And so I used to see myself as doing that. And then it's not until years later, like especially now, and again of recent, only in the last week, where I've thought about my actions, and maybe it wasn't how I've been labelled by psychologists. And I think, well, hold on a minute, you don't even know me. Because, so for instance, I've had girlfriends and they say, my God, he's actually really kind, really fun. He's a good laugh.
Yes, you are.
You don't see the violence in him.
No.
You will see it if you cross him as a man.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you will not see that.
Yeah.
You'll see him as very gentlemanly. Please, there's ladies present.
Yeah.
So I'll get the old school mould. So I remember having to carry my mother's shopping bag, not having to, but insisting on. Carrying my mum's bags down a long walk. You're talking of a good half an hour walk. The bags used to cut into my hands.
You had
and I'd carry them for my mum, and I'd open the door for my mum, and don't swear in front of my mum, and I'd be a little boy, and I believed in what I now know as to be chivalry.
Yeah.
Nature or nurture, or as you said, animalistic or in me.
I think it's all of that.
I
think you can't separate. I think your grandparents, whatever their experiences are, your genetic expression comes from them. Then you learn from your parents, and obviously they get their genetic expression from their grandparents. So your great-grandparents, it sort of skips a generation. So what they've learnt from their parents, they're passing down to you as the education of life, but your genetic expression comes from your grandparents. And then you've got this thing with your brother where he needs a protector. You're there, you're witnessing it. That experience of, I've got to look after him. He's already been hurt. He's got this helmet on. These boys are picking on him. That's not right. I'm going to go and sort it out. You did. The reward, like I said, for that would have been great, because you've helped your brother and people now recognise you as someone to rely on, which is what was driving you anyway, that little gentleman that you always were, getting your fingers cut from carrying the bags. And then you become known as somebody that's dependable in the community, be it that you're 7 or 27, you're now dependable. And we need those people in society. The problem is that you become a person of interest to the police because you're a little bit woo and a little bit way. Sometimes you go through the back door, but it's because you're seeing that a woman, let's say in this case, has had a knife held to her as far as you're aware, and she's pregnant. And for you, what you just said about carrying your mum's bags, that's not on. You don't do that. That's not how we behave. Nobody else is sorting it out. And obviously there's this sort of rivalry between, I guess, what you call the John Waynes in society and the police, because the police don't want you interrupting or interfering with their way of doing things. So you become a bit of a nuisance to them. But equally, the community's like, and again, no disrespect to the good police, because there are some out there.
Yeah, thank God we've got them. What kind of society would we have if we didn't have the police?
Yeah.
And prisons.
Correct. We do need them. It's just a shame that people get, that there's, and we must say this, as much as there's good teachers, good police, good social workers, good nurses, good doctors, good therapists, there's also bad in all of that. And there's also corruption in all of that.
Yeah.
And if you're a victim of that corruption, and yes, you've been a naughty boy at times and you've fully admitted that, but if you're a victim of that corruption, your life gets taken away as well as the person that's being killed. And I just feel like we have to highlight that that's not fair either, and I think that's a really important part of the story, because for me, there's toe rags that are lovable and there's toe rags that you really do want put in prison.
There's been some people that I've had to explain the error of their ways to them.
Yeah.
As a young man.
Yeah.
I'm talking about when I was 14.
Yeah.
I've had fights with, there's some of the grown men in the village who would have been able to pick me up and just overpower me and just batter me. But if I could get my shots off to them first, my hands, they were extremely fast at the time. Some of them being too powerful, it would have been like a bee stinging them and they'd have picked me up and slapped me around.
Yeah.
You're talking about 21, 20-year-old young men, not boys, but I was fighting them at that age, some, and being quite successful. However, the point I make is this. Some of them toe rags in the village, by the time I was a certain age, I had that consideration from people that Kevin can sort them out. And the older generation, the old ladies have gone, oh, it couldn't have happened to a better person.
Yeah.
He's a horrible bastard, that man.
Yeah. They were glad.
Horrible.
Yeah.
And he's tormenting, terrorising people.
Yeah.
Walks into a boozer and everyone's, oh, God, he's here.
Yeah.
And
We've all met them ones, haven't we?
Horrible. And what are the police doing about them?
Sod all.
Are they taming their ways where they're walking in and terrorising and slapping people around and just making people feel uncomfortable? And then all of a sudden, I came along, knocked some spark out, and next time I'm in a boozer or they're in a boozer, they keep their mouth shut and they'll behave better.
And everyone's happy that
Everyone's
you've done
happy.
It. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you got a good hiding off Kevin Lane the other day, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll come back again and give you another good hiding if you don't fucking behave.
But it's true. Anyone that's spent any time in a local pub or a working man's club, I mean, obviously there's not many of them around anymore, but we all know those characters that come in and do terrorise and they, for the fun of it, just smash everything up while everyone's having a great time. And it's usually the people, the women or the girlfriends, the blokes might have moved on to another pub and the girls are left behind together, and then this horrible one comes in and smashes it up. Someone ends up with an ashtray in their face back in the day for no reason. Then this idiot comes in and thinks he can just terrorise everybody. Then someone like you comes along and sorts it out, and everyone's like, thank God, because they're scared.
You'll be minding your own business, but you'll see something going on and you go,
yeah,
come on, mate, give us a squeeze, will you? Behave yourself, turn it down. And you're going the diplomatic route with all the rest of it.
Of course.
And you're being gentlemanly about it.
Yeah.
And they might not know you at first. And I go, you shut up, you silly little grunt. And you go, yeah, really, is that right? Let's go outside. You can't talk to me like that.
Yeah.
Bing, bong, bing, and they're asleep.
Bing, bong, bing. I'm going to take that one. Bing, bong, bing. And they're out.
And he's out cold. However, when I went to prison, I went to school when you had certain people in prison. I'm not allowed to mention people's names, and I wouldn't mention them without their respect, without their permission. Okay? Yeah. But you had an old school generation of type criminals who would commit crime. They'd put a lot of time into something. Women and children, leave them alone.
Yeah.
They'd think about something, like the Hatton Garden boys.
Yes.
They'd put a lot of work into that, or other crimes, well-known crimes.
Intelligent crimes.
Intelligent crimes with respect.
Yeah.
I went into prison for the murder in 1995, but prior to that, I did a kidnapping scene time in 1991, and you had certain rules and ethics in there, and the staff also agreed with prisoners taking care of matters themselves.
Yes.
So when I went to prison at that time, there was very few pedophiles and such in prison because they feared getting a good hiding in reception as soon as they landed.
Yeah.
Let alone on the landings.
Yeah.
When staff would go, that's what they're in for, repeat offenders, blah, 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 nasty pieces of work, and they're in amongst you. Yeah. They'd be in the prison within minutes, you would get told.
Yeah.
With their names. And I've had staff open up doors, the flat cap mob, ex-army soldiers and all the rest of it. I mean, the brutal beatings they used to give out as well. Don't get me wrong. If you come across them, they'd beat the life out of you and stuff like that. But they also had a code where men were men. Open the doors, standing there, you wouldn't think a pin had dropped. You'd go in, batter the life out of these, whatever they'd done, come back out, shut the door, another one down there. And that happened to in Reading when I was in there, and that's how it all started. Yeah. I got given half ounce tobacco with some names. I was with my best mate, Marcus Lemaire. He's going, you shouldn't have took that. I said, why? He says, because they've just paid you now to... I said, I got it for you because you smoke. Not because I was being paid. I thought, oh, he smokes, I'll have that, yeah. A couple of those, I'm going to bash them up anyway. So I didn't see what was going on here. I thought they were being good screws. Now that he smoked, here you go. So anyway, that's how it all started. But then when I went away for the murder, again, at that same time, it was just changing over from the Operation Trident, young black kids coming in predominantly, where the parents went to the police and said, what are you going to do to stop our children killing each other?
Right.
That's how Operation Trident come about, for those people who know of Operation Trident, and those that don't, look it up. All the young kids killing each other over postal code wars.
Yeah, yeah.
Terrible, 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 terrible.
Yeah.
Poor parents lost many children. Things started changing around at that time. However, we still looked after our own on the landings, where we wouldn't tolerate certain types of people being on the landings. And thank God we did that.
Yeah.
Because now they're mixing, rubbing shoulders and converting and being made to feel welcome because they're now they've converted to Islam.
Yeah.
And now it can be accepted and all the rest of it. Well, take them over to meet your mum and your sisters then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Story. So the landings have changed now. But when I went in on those previous 2 times, we did control a certain amount of respect and authority.
And surely that in itself, like, 'cause if you look at the sentencing for, sex crimes, especially against children, they're ridiculous. They are so short that it's a blink of an eye and it's done. I'd imagine. I've never been to prison, but I'd assume that if you're willing to go to prison and do that sort of crime in the first place, a couple of years, it's not really going to break you. But now, as you say, you're going in and there's no consequence in the sentence or on the landings.
So Peter is probably the last one that is not accepted now.
Yeah.
On normal location. Rape is.
Wow.
Lots of rapists on the landings now. So I've been away, and again, I can't mention where.
No.
But I opened up my door and said, he is one of them blokes that took them young girls away, raped and tortured them for days, and then shot them through the mouth to kill them. And he's on the landing, and I'm trying to wash my mouth.
And there's no big deal.
And I'm thinking, God, what is going on here? And people cuddling him and making him, well, oh, brother, and all the rest of it. And I'm thinking, my God, if he'd gone back a few years, I wouldn't have had it in me not to be able to go and set about him.
Yeah.
Now, I do my time behind my door anyway, a lot of the time now, but behind my door, and I'm thinking, my God, I'm living on the same landing as this one and that one. And you go to other landings, and there's one of them on there and another one on there. And I'm thinking, my God, they're infiltrating on the landings now. So what the prison service have done is very cleverly, they're doing an integration because it's cheaper to have one visit hall, one movement, etc., rather than all these.
So it's all cost cutting.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they'd have, say, a normal location prisoner who would be given a job to go onto the protection wings, Rule 43, to see people for causes or that or this and all different reasons they go. And there's quite a few of these lads doing these jobs.
Yeah.
But they're having to talk and mix with people and racists who are on normal location or are on protection wings as well, because they wouldn't all be on our wings.
No.
You get the odd few that slip in.
Yeah.
And that is a way of getting to know someone, talk to him, liking to him without knowing what he's in for.
Yes.
And the next thing you know, oh, he's all right. So now you've got all the bad debtors living on these wings, wings, sharing cells with radicals.
Feeding each other,
getting to like them, and then maybe becoming like them.
Yeah. Well, this is the issue. We know this. How often have we heard this saying, you are going to be the 5 people that surround you? So
I've never heard that
Yeah.
before.
So they say you basically become a version of the 5 people that you're surrounded by. Because when think of that magnetic thing I said earlier, the energy. When you're around certain people all the time, we naturally as animals adapt to our environment, don't we?
Okay.
So, of course, in prison or anywhere else, if you're around a certain type of people, it becomes normal. It's not because you're choosing for it to become normal. It just does. That conversation becomes normal. You're no longer shocked by what you hear. This is why a lot of people that do the job that I do end up being a bit desensitized, because you hear the graphic and you'll hear the graphic and you'll see the graphic. So it's no longer a shock. And it should be a shock, shouldn't it? So if you're spending a lot of time around people, it no longer becomes shocking. It becomes normal.
You accept it. Did you know this? I didn't know this until I questioned it recently. They put a fellow on a wing, and something weren't right about him, all right? And I caught him a couple of times doing something. I said, "It's not right with that fella." Turned out he'd been raping his niece, but he was a repeat offender.
Yeah. So you didn't know this at the time. You just felt there was something dodgy.
Yeah.
Again, you can tell, can't you?
Someone Googled. Yeah, I said, "He's not right, that fella." Someone Googled him. They put him in with a fellow I know. Banged her up with him. And I went to him, I said, "What are you doing?" They said, "He's got pictures of his kids on the wall and his family and his personal addresses. And you're putting someone in that cell with him. Not only are you endangering his life, which I couldn't give two monkeys about anyway, but as a responsibility, that should not happen.
Yeah.
But how about what would happen if that fella found out that he's locked up with and something happened? Then he gets an extra longer sentence as a result." Kevin said, "We're not allowed to. If they want to come on normal location, we have to allow that." I said, "But you're putting them in a cell with someone without telling them what their history is, who is of normal character."
Why are they not allowed anymore?
So they're not even allowed to say, "Well, if he wants to go in there with you and you've got all your pictures, like I say, of your family, put him in there."
But that's like, for someone that's a paedophile, isn't that like, dangling sweeties in front of the fat
Of course
kid?
it is, and it's disgusting that they can do that without informing the person they've got to share a cell with.
Yeah.
That is the state of the prison service at the moment, and at the minute it is in shambles for many reasons because of, I'm going off the grade here a little bit, but the mental health issues, how people are manipulating the system, terribly understaffed, overpopulated, lock up in the evenings, people cutting themselves all the time, the spice, the length of sentences, the TVs. Prison's not prison no more. It's not. You used to go away, do a bit of bird. The longest sentence you used to get years ago was a 9 or 12 year sentence for murder.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't reoffend.
Yeah.
Now they're getting 30s and 40s and kids are coming out cabbages. They've got nothing to look forward to. They've been institutionalised. They've got some form of habits that they've picked up in prison, whether it be pharmaceutical drugs.
Yeah.
They got issues in terms of they have to rely on society to take care of them, as in feed them and provide for them, so they might as well stay in prison.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then I've probably gone off a little bit there.
That's all right, because this is the nature of your life. It does have lots of different elements to it, doesn't it?
So I've seen the changes, and I've been in and seen these, and staff feel so helpless to help people. So
you could be fundamental to educating on how the system should be run, really. I could see you going to somewhere, and I'm sure you've already done this, so forgive me if you have.
I've got some more coming up, prisons. I'm going into Elstoke prison.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Next week. I'm going into Feltham soon, I believe, and I'm doing them free of charge.
Because this is a man that knows the system inside out, the good, the bad and the ugly. You're somebody that's really integral. We should all be listening.
Thank you for that. I do. So I believe I know how things should be done. We should be training first of all, we should have internment for fundamentalists, and they should be kept separate.
Yeah, I agree.
It's caused massive problems in the prison system.
Yeah.
I said that 10 years ago on BBC Home Counties Radio, and I was invited to a seminar in London by the Times to speak, and
You've done loads of work, haven't you, on this sort of thing, on media and public speaking.
And I know what I'm talking about. So you get a misfit or a wannabe. Hello, brother, he'd be cuddled and welcomed. Of course, at school he was shunned. He's shunned in his community. Yeah. Now he's welcomed, and next thing you know, he's going out. He's been indoctrinated, and he's committing attacks with people in the prison system. And he's going out onto the street.
A friend of mine said this, who's been inside. I won't say his name. And he was talking about a young lad that got sort of coerced and controlled into a particular group. And, he said, and this guy was ginger himself, but he said he was the ginger kid at school that had always been bullied. So he was easy to bring in and manipulate because he wanted to fit in. He wanted to be seen as important.
I know someone with the same colour of hair, an absolute arsehole.
Yeah.
And he's done 20 odd years in prison. And I've got to tell you now, I had to walk past him a few times in the prison I come in, knowing that he's committed 7 attacks on, or so, 7 life sentences he's got on people. He came in a BNP, and he converted, and then he's
Came in BNP.
Yeah, and then he converted because he was having grief.
Yeah.
And then carried out a load of attacks for him, doing a 5 or 7 year sentence. He's done 22 or 24 years now.
Wow.
But he is a misfit.
Yeah.
And he is going to go out and be a misfit out on the streets.
Yeah.
Okay. And
because he's actually got, again, it goes back to what we were saying about you at the beginning, that groundedness. You know who you are. You're humble. You know what you stand for. And I think that's so important, that principle goes back to that, be principled. I mean, okay, some of the things that you did, other people listening to this might go, I still don't agree that he did those things, even if he was wrongly, convicted of something else, which is whatever. But the point being is at least you stand for something. You're not going to be swayed one way or the other just for the notoriety, just for the validation.
I could give 2 monkeys about that. I believe what is right and what's the better of people. I don't believe that. Unfortunately, violence is enforced by this country.
Yeah.
So if they want you out of your cell, they will use violence to remove you out of your cell. If they want you to put you on a bus, they will use violence. If they want you to remove you. So I was threatened with violence when I first went into prison by a member of staff, and I ended up having an altercation with him. He went to hospital, and I'm standing there now, and I said, no problem, but they've got to hit the bell, they've got to put their arms around you, and just standing there chatting like. And this member of staff had been told to stop threatening me all day long. He hasn't done anything wrong. Why are you threatening him? George Shipton, a former screw, give evidence at the adjudication when I got a nicking. This screw lost 4 teeth, 4 stitches, and I fractured his cheekbone. I only hit him twice. The best punches of my life. But he'd been threatening me all day, saying, we'll kill you, Lane, if we get you down here. And I said, what's the matter with you? I fucking done nothing wrong to you. I'm in prison 2 weeks.
Yeah.
However, when I was standing there, and this is what I'm trying to get across here, I was standing there doing nothing. Staff come running in and we're standing there. Why did I need to be knocked to the floor at a great pace of knots, a great force, wrapped up, bent up, arms up my back, legs up my back, as if I was fighting when I was just standing there like that?
That's not on.
So that's what the force is used, and they have to use that, and it's wrong. So you go to Argentina, you train to be a prison officer for 4 years. It becomes a profession.
Wow.
Not 7 or 9 weeks like they do
so
here now.
Interesting. They do it so differently abroad, don't they?
So
Portugal,
differently.
Argentina, those sorts of
Norway,
places.
look at Norway. The least reoffending rate in Europe. There are questions there to be raised. It was brought to my attention that fellow who shot all them 60-odd children.
Oh, yeah.
Maximum sentence Professor Wilson told me this, 21 years, and he gets released. Unless he's mentally unstable. Well, I consider him mentally unstable anyway.
Well, surely anyone that does that is without any need of a doctor to diagnose them. It's clear that they're mentally unstable.
Clearly unstable.
Yeah.
However, they still have got a great system where they teach you a profession, you earn money when you're in there, decent wages, money gets saved for you, money gets sent home to your family.
That's so good.
You have visits with your family in prison where you stay the weekend in like a
hotel type
like a bungalow.
Thing. Oh, nice.
And you barbecues in your own ground, so you keep the same family.
So they're basically rehabilitating you at the same time.
Rehabilitating, you're keeping the family together, keeping your support network together.
Yeah.
And you're earning a decent living. So what we do in this country, we have silly little jobs in the prison instead of teaching people proper trades, having massive workshops set up where you go, right, this country needs 40 million doors. We've got to build 6 million homes. How many doors is that we need?
Yeah.
And frames and stuff.
Yeah.
Get the workshop set up now so you can have lads in these workshops making these doors or kitchens or whatever we need and earning a living from that, where the money gets put aside, like I say, and sent home.
Yeah.
And they go home, they've got self-worth, they're going to work in the daytime, getting out of bed, stop them watching TV till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, stop them having all the Game Boys, make them read, certainly read and write, make them sure they can't. If you want your parole, you have got to be able to read and write your bleeding name to a Janet and John level, the old books, Janet and John.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you ain't going home.
Yeah.
Simple. If you want your parole, you've got to do a test and you've got to pass it.
Yeah.
That would make people learn to read and write, would it not?
Absolutely. And what do you think? Because I was thinking this just the other day. You know, in Northampton, we're like pothole city. They're everywhere. It's ridiculous. Surely these people that are like, say, category C. Yeah, so they're doing all right and they're okay. Can they not come out for a day and fix all the potholes instead of them just laying
You
there?
should do. You should have a look. You've got people in DCATs going out doing small jobs
So
like
why
that.
can't we do more of that? Because they say, oh, we haven't got any money left in the pot until it gets to April, and obviously they've got to spend all the money. But you think, well, if someone's in prison and again gets them out, gets them working for the day, probably feeling quite good about it. It's a reward because it's work outside of the prison. I don't know how easy that is to manage, but I'm sure these things could be dealt with. But we don't need to have to. Look, I went to an old council estate where I bought my first house the other day, and it is unbelievably overgrown. Run down. I know they have this with community service, but could we not have day release for work?
They do in the DCAT, don't they?
Yeah, but more
Not in the
so.
CCAT.
But again, CCAT, let's get it embedded earlier on because the communities need it. I'm sure there's a reward. I mean, obviously you'd need plenty of officers and there'd be some things that'd have to be put into place. But I just don't see why the streets of our towns and cities have got to be so appalling when there's a solution to that.
Put it right.
The prisoners could do the work.
Absolutely. I've agreed with that for years. And
Yeah.
and I've said very much similar to that.
Yeah.
And they should have bigger parties doing it. Community service should be done. A lot more people should be given community service.
Yes, I agree.
For some
I
of the
totally
silly
agree.
crimes.
Well, especially if you look at what's happening at the minute. Like, I'm not agreeing with some of the things that have been said on social media, but come on, if people was in and out in 2 years, you can't put someone in for saying something a bit mean on social media. Yes, some people say, well, it's racist and it's cruel and it's evil. Yes, it is. Sometimes it is. But if that person has already seen the error of their ways and taken down, that we all know who I'm talking about at the minute.
Yeah.
If they've taken down what they've said and they've realised, I mean, this woman lost
3
a child.
years.
And a child gets less.
Charlie Bronson's coming up for parole soon.
Yeah.
How many people have been in and out of prison in the 40 odd years that he spent in prison?
Unbelievable.
How many lives have been destroyed?
Yeah.
Racists and people.
Yeah.
From being in, out.
All become born again Christians for about 5 minutes until they're out again.
There we go.
Yeah.
What a load of rubbish.
Yeah.
So he's in prison to prove an example
Yes.
to others.
As were you, I believe.
Absolutely, I was. Yeah, getting up. Charlie's got up on the roof. He's done this. He's done that. Honestly, there's a lot of kids in the system who have been far more violent than he ever has.
It's unbelievable. I know you've lived it, and I know you're still living it because you're still educating on it and talking about it. And I guess your story leans into a lot of what's wrong in society and in the prison system.
For the better of the country and people.
Yes.
Not because I'm heavily entrenched in my views. It's what I think would benefit people.
And so do I. Hence the reason when Liam said, would you like Kevin? I was like, yes, because this is a conversation we need to have. And I think there's a lot of people out there that go, yeah, but, the justice system. I say, look, it is so wrong now. It's so outdated. It needs so much reform. And it is now, it seems, it seems that it's been forgotten about. And it's the last, even though it's talked about a lot, it's not really looked at. You start to talk about Argentina and Norway and all these, I know in Portugal they do drug rehabilitation really well over there. Why aren't we doing that?
You have to ask yourself that. Big business, isn't it, in this country? Why wouldn't you want to stop your kids coming to prison? What are we doing wrong in this country? I'll tell you what we're doing wrong. We're running the country wrong to begin with.
Oh, I mean,
come on,
that's blindingly obvious.
Isn't it? Yeah. And then what are we doing wrong in schools? So, Angels with Dirty Faces, James Cagney.
Yeah.
And I say this repeatedly. He went to the electric chair crying because he was asked to put the kids off going to prison. Now, obviously, it's a film.
Yeah.
Why do we portray the gangsters to be heroes in this country? It's wrong.
Yeah.
It's terribly wrong.
Yeah.
All right, we all love a good film like that.
Of course.
But why is that in us that we love that in us?
It's a great question. I think it's because most people are scared, right?
What about the straight girls in the life? What about a judge watched a film and he what heist it got? It's a great film.
Yeah.
Loved the film. Or it could be true romance. They were dealing true romance. I think they sold a bit of coke, didn't they?
Yeah.
Something like that. But they're committing a crime again. But it was a love story.
Yeah.
However, what is it about us, whether you've committed an act of crime in the past or you're an absolutely straight goer,
Yeah.
that still likes something about a gangster type man being a hero.
I do think it's safety. You know, going back to that protection, I think everybody wants to feel that there's people out there that are protecting us. And I think
Within the community, within the outside of the professionals.
yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I know that you've got certain gangsters which you definitely don't want in your community.
No, you don't know.
But I think we glamorise it because not many people know people that commit crimes. And if they do, they don't know them inside out. They know what they've heard or they know what they've been told. So these films, they do sort of put people as a hero. And I think a lot of people are looking for that idol. Maybe they don't have a great relationship with their dads. Maybe they don't have a great relationship with their society, i.e. their teachers, their police officers. So they're looking for someone to put on a pedestal. And these people are held up as heroes. Now, like I said, some actually are that kind of, you know, Robin Hood or John Wayne character, a bit like yourself. And I think we all love those characters in life. But then we can't deter from the gangsters that are not good people. And it's, this is what I said earlier. It's the same in anything, with gangsters, with police, with teachers, with doctors. You're going to get good and you're going to get bad. Yeah. And I do think people are always thinking, well, I don't feel safe in my own home. You know, a little old lady that locks the door at night, she wants someone like a Kev Lane next door. But these films really make us feel that so many, although I've watched some and felt really uncomfortable. You know, those bits where, I can't remember what film it is, it's something with Robert De Niro and, you know, all those characters.
Yeah.
Where there's a scene with Joe Pesci.
Al Pacino and Robert
yeah.
De Niro, yeah.
There's a scene with Joe Pesci, is that how you say his name or whatever?
Yeah.
And they're all, I can't remember what film it is, and they're all in a restaurant and someone comes along, they're having one of their mates on in the restaurant. And they're winding him up and it's a little bit bullyish. And then anyway, it turns out it's all a bit of a joke. But that doesn't help anyone understand the film I'm talking about, that description.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, but a lot of people know because of the name Joe Pesci. I'm not very good at pronouncing that.
No. But it was really uncomfortable because it was this real bully tactic that they were using. But I just kind of understood that was the culture. Like, once you're in that culture, it's a game and it's
to
mind
some
games.
People, I know people that I would not want to be in a room with them on my own if I'd upset them.
Yeah.
But you would never hear a word of violence out of their mouth or an act of violence out of them portrayed for their behaviour.
So there'd be more
absolute, just
gentlemen.
Normal, gentleman people.
They're the ones to be scared of most, aren't they? The ones that you don't, as in, if they go, they're really going to go.
That's what people say, yeah. Well, no, it's in them, but you would never see it unless they need it.
Yeah.
And yet those people, because they can turn their hand to violence like that, might be considered. I like those type of people.
They are more old school, though, aren't
more
they?
More old school, like this, and they're the ones that people like.
Yeah, they are.
You know, they won't bother you unless you bother them. And what if they do raise an eyebrow or something? It's because of it needed to be at that time. Who's that? The ex-prisoner who, I'm not sure if he was an ex-soldier, but he was serving a life sentence. I think Liam interviewed him. And it was that fella on Bleeding Tower Bridge who had the knife strapped to his hands. And then the prisoner got stuck into him, didn't he?
I don't know.
Took him out of the game, yeah. So Liam Tuff interviewed a fella, and he was a prisoner doing a course with that geezer that Bleeder had the knife strapped to his hand and killed. He set about people with knives, didn't he, on Tower Bridge? Remember that?
Yes, I do now, yeah.
And
yeah.
It was a prisoner that we're talking about and the type of people we're talking about who would make a stand for someone. In this, but he was serving a life sentence. He got, I think the Queen at the time, he was not knighted, of course, but he had his sentence reduced and he was released from prison, and the Queen gave him maybe a
honorary thing.
Yeah, honorary, yeah. So, member of MBE or something, honorary member, something like that. Anyway, he got that. But if he hadn't have done that at that time, he'd have considered a murderer.
Yes.
But then he went and done that for the right. So a murderer who'd done whatever he'd done before, also done good because of the part in him that was made
Yeah.
the way he is
Yeah.
to do. And then he's applauded.
Yeah.
And if he'd gone into the army, he'd be trained to come out of those trenches and face the bullets. And that's what we want you to do.
Yeah, no, you're right. You know, because you sort of, I'm always surprised actually after watching a few of your interviews that you didn't go into the army.
I got turned down because I was on 6 months parole.
Right.
They
wouldn't let
probation.
you in.
Yeah.
Because you'd have been good. I think you'd have been amazing actually.
I've got good strength of mind.
Yeah.
And I know that because of what I've been through.
Yeah.
And I've had SAS fellas say, God, Kevin,
well, yeah,
you've got this mental capacity.
Yeah.
My fitness levels were quite good.
Yeah.
In prison. So I might have been able to make the grade, or who knows.
Yeah.
But I do know.
You've got that brotherhood thing going on as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't leave someone. I won't.
Yeah.
I don't leave no one behind. I'll make a stand.
And I just think the way your brain is, because it's for the right, again, you know, let's face it, if you go into the army, there's things that you've got to do and things that you've got to see, which are to protect the country. So if we talk about what you were doing. Or other countries, of course. So if we think about what you were doing, the mentality, although you're sort of doing it off your own volition, is not too dissimilar. You know, the protectiveness, protecting others, women that have had knives held against their throats when they're pregnant or up to their pregnant
Can I tell
bellies.
you something there, please? A screw come up to me. Someone wrote me a letter. He's dead now. He said, oh, such and such has come there, look after him. No problem. I'll give him steak. I'll cook him a meal. Staff are looking at me, right? He was in for 9 counts of robbery by knife, 2 of them to pregnant women, 2 of them he held in their houses in the morning with their children. And someone said, Kevin, do you know what he's in for? I went, no, but such and such said, look after him, he's coming here now from another prison. So I have. I've just,
done what you were told, basically.
What I was asked.
Yeah.
And he said, Kevin, he's in for this. Yeah. Anyway, he weren't on the landing for much longer after that.
No.
But he went one way, I went another.
Yeah.
I said, see, me and you, mate, we don't read from the same book.
Yeah.
And if you ain't off this landing, I said, unlock, I said, it's going to be very difficult. And he went and he was gone. And that's why the staff liked certain prisoners to say, we clean the landings up to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But there's some right beasts on them landings now that don't give 2 monkeys.
So you can't, I mean, you were recalled recently. Are you allowed to talk about that?
Certain bits, yeah.
Recalled recently. When you went back in, how long was it for?
I did 14 and a half months for a maximum sentence of 6 months if I'd have been found guilty for that crime of which I was exonerated.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Was that another? I mean, you can't say much.
I can't talk about that because I've had an order placed on me for that. But all I can say is that I should have been released within 3 months, and then because the system is overrun, it took 9 months for me to get to a parole board.
So because of the system, you had to wait a lot longer.
Yeah, and people should be mindful of that they should be grateful of that, but also upset about that.
Yeah.
That we're not letting people out on the streets, or we are actually at the moment.
Well, yeah, opening up the doors to some and not to others.
Letting people out the street. A lot of them lads, there's a lot in there that won't reoffend. But anyway, the system is, if you're a lifer, then you, as I had to wait for a parole board. However, you can get released earlier. However, it's failing because they are so overrun. Some probation officers have 80 prisoners to look after. And I want people to know that they've got to stop saying, oh, probation is shit. They're shit. No, actually, they're just so overworked.
It's the same in all systems.
And they get run down. They work until... My probation officer in prison, bless her, 2:00 in the morning and later some nights on her laptop.
Yeah.
And then back in the next morning.
Yeah.
And I had to say to her, blimey, she go, I was up till 2 working last night. I said, oh,
it's normal. It becomes normal, and it shouldn't be, because that is a nervous system waiting to break. And I know that because I work late. But the pressure's on, and although I don't work, for a system, I work for myself. there's still a lot of people on my books, and you feel that you have to do your best for everyone because that's the way we are. Like you were saying about your shiny kitchen in prison, you take pride in your work. But that does mean the 2:00 in the morning finishes, because you can't do it if you don't do that. You can't do an effective job. And so the whole system of society is broken.
Oh, it's broken. So if you've got house blocks now in prisons, and again, it's because what are we going to do? All these people are coming over on boats.
Yeah,
they're going
yeah,
into
yeah.
prison, going into hotels.
Yeah.
What they should do is open up army camps.
Yeah.
And put them all in army camps and say, you want to come to this country, you're going to be put in the territorial army in this country. You haven't got to go off unless you want to. You can sign up. But you're going to learn to speak our English.
Yeah.
You're going to put something back into the country. You're going to learn to read and write in this country.
Yeah.
If you want to come to us.
Yeah.
If you want to be a refugee and we'll take you in, asylum seeker.
Yeah.
But you're going to do the work that's needed that has been done by other people.
Yeah.
And you're going to do
so
it in a
why isn't
camp.
that happening?
Why isn't it happening? Why have we got house blocks full of people that come over on boats in prison?
Yeah. It just makes no sense.
Costing fortunes in hotels.
Well, look, from what I hear,
And
it's
then
50, is
disappearing.
it 50 billion a year?
There we go.
A year. Whereas your idea, that's perfect.
Put them straight into an army camp.
Yeah. Perfect, because they're getting trained, they're going to have the discipline, they're going to speak the language, we're going to have like people that are protecting us. You know, it just makes perfectly sense.
How many would you say would want to go into the army in this country if they knew that's where they were going if they got caught? They wouldn't be coming over, would they?
This is the issue. So what we
They
need...
haven't got to go to war.
No.
They're just going to work in an army camp on dry land.
Yeah. Oh, God, you should write another book, Kev.
I have, Life in My Lane, but I haven't put it into print yet. I've finished it, and I wrote it off my recall. I wrote every day recording
I love
what
that.
took on.
You've just got such a curious, busy mind. You have to use it, don't you?
It was hard though, I have to tell you. It was really difficult this time. Thank you. I remember writing with the biro out of the pen. That's all I had. And that's how I started writing into like a school book, you know, a maths book.
Yeah.
And I was writing in that with a little thing, and then I got a pen after a few days, and then, well, the next day actually. But the first day I also needed to get something recorded. And I just said, wallop, I'm going to record every single day. And I did.
God.
And that's going to be my next book or two, because I think it'll be 2 books, or definitely 1. And that'll be on my time in prison, my experiences in prison, new and old, things that have happened. I want to show people what you're dealing with sometimes so they can understand what prisoners go through. It's not about lambasting the prison service.
No.
It's about making the general public see what prisoners are up against and what prisons are up against.
Yes.
What staff are up against, so they can form an well-informed, true perspective of what's going on. I'm not there to make the prison service look bad, and I won't do that, because thank God for the good in the bloody job.
Yeah.
And I mean that. But people need to understand where it is going wrong to be able to change it and make it better.
Yeah.
Not better, but as in terms of work better.
Well, more effective.
Far more effective. Stop following America.
Yes, a very good point. In fact, if we look at places like Argentina, I know you say all these places are going to have their loopholes and the things that aren't quite right, but we should look at the places that are doing something well. And that, I mean, Norway, yeah. Well, I watched a documentary some years ago called The House I Live In, and it was about the way that...
What is the house you live in like?
Well...
Yeah, let's find out.
Who lived in a house like this? It was about Ronald Reagan's term and then George Bush Senior, I think, about how they were handling the drug issues, and there was the sort of large amount of black and Hispanic people in prisons, and how they were not managing the sort of community and society issues. They weren't rehabilitated because most of them were drug offences. You know, the 3 strikes and you're out rule in America, and they used Portugal and some of the European places as a really good benchmark for how it should be done. And still it's not been done. So you have to say, like you said earlier, it's a business, it's money, it's the powers that be that decide, no, actually, we're just going to let this be the way it is. Because let's face it, if you listen, especially with the paedophile thing, if you look at that particular issue, well, we know that goes all the way to the top. So they're not going to care too much about it going on at the bottom, are they? But a couple of things I really want to...
Stick them on an island amongst themselves with a police force, okay, and with doctors that are trained who are people and they've been convicted. Right, you're going to go and live on an island. You can't come off on it. So you can do what you got to do to amongst each other.
Well, they're never going to do it, are they? Because they don't
They'll
get
be all
any...
men.
There's no power in that.
No power, but they can't harm other people.
Yeah.
Only themselves who are already doing
Well,
it.
look at the Louis Theroux documentary. In America, there's a place where they give them, I think, medical castration.
Yeah.
And I think they have to stay in there. They know that they can't come out because they'll recommit.
Commit again.
Now, I've had this conversation many times about rehabilitation, and I think it's been taken the wrong way. I think we have to work with people as professionals to understand the workings of their mind, to try and stop the little boys that have been abused becoming the abuser.
Yeah.
Because we see that loop happen again and again and again.
Yeah.
So I do think we have to work with them. We have to try and understand what's gone on in their psyche. How did that become so split? Where did the predator start to develop? Was it at the point of testosterone forming? You know, we need to understand the biological aspects of it. But it's not said through sympathy for the paedophile or for the rape. It's said because clinical evidence needs to be collected to prevent, not to cure. There's a difference. A couple of things I wanted to touch on with you, because I think two things that really stood out about your story to me. One was where you... there was a situation where you'd done something and it had created some PTSD in somebody else because you'd got the wrong person.
Yeah,
Am I right?
that was a kidnapping. Will Guilfoyle.
You touched on it earlier, yeah.
Yeah.
What we didn't say earlier was that actually you two have met since then.
See him the other week. I'll give him a bottle of my homebrew.
Which I also wanted to talk about because the first time I saw this was on Banged Up.
Right, so me and Will, I met Will, I did restorative justice, and
Yeah.
it was the best thing to do, and I believe that is the best courses you can do if the situation's right for victim and predator to come together.
I totally agree.
It's life-changing for me.
Yeah.
I sat there and took a load of abuse, and I used to set myself up for abuse by saying I kidnapped the wrong fella, without going into the details that I did earlier.
Yeah.
And I did that out of respect for the person I kidnapped. I thought, let me get a bit of grief back from people.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I thought, listen, I don't mind.
So to be clear, when you spoke earlier about running over this guy's legs, you'd got the wrong person.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's for those that didn't know that story already.
Even the police thought it was him, though. And when they took him out of the hospital 7 days later, they said, you think that's bad? They said, we can kill you and actually get rid of you. And they banged him up in police cells. They was even convinced it was him that had done what he'd done.
Oh,
and the local community put him forward as doing it, and his work colleagues. And they treated him appalling.
He hadn't even done it.
Hadn't even done it. And he will say, I think he said that. He has said that. So, but I see Will now. I'm just trying to get him a job, actually, with a friend. He's lost his job, so I'm trying to get him another job with somebody. But
would you say you're friends now?
Yeah, absolutely friends. I went round his house the other day to see him. Yeah, and I see him. I took him for a pint the other day. Where did I take him? I met him and took him somewhere. Someone else tried to get him a job. And I took him for a haircut with my mate's barbers.
Wow.
Got him his hair cut because he's unemployed at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I enjoy
That's
his company.
so good. Do you know why I say that's so important? And just to give you the boring brain details of this, because I think this is really interesting. Where there's a trauma, because I know he had some PTSD post that incident, didn't he? Which I know you feel really bad about because I've seen you talk about it. And I know for those that don't know, the second interview you did with Liam and the one you've done with James is with Will.
Yeah.
So I want to point people back there. So again, if you want the nitty-gritty of the details of this story, go to Liam's episode. As Liam passes me such good guests, it's only fair that I get people to watch it if they haven't. And then you did a second one with Will, with Liam again. And then I saw the one with James English. And it's so interesting to watch the story, because obviously I watched the first episode with Liam first with you, and then I watched that episode. And it's fascinating. But the reason I think it's fascinating is because I'm looking at it from the brain perspective. Where there's a trauma, if there's a high emotional charge with that trauma, could be fear, could be anything, it gets frozen in your brain. And every time you revisit it from the last time you remembered it, not from the time that it happened. And memories can become a little bit like gossip. So instead of you remembering it exactly as it was, you start, this is a clinical fact, you start... Whisper. Yeah, it's exactly that. So you're replaying it differently every time, although you don't realise you are because it's only tiny, tiny little complex changes. But also you remember it again from the place you were at the time. So say your trauma happened when you were 10, you're a 10-year-old when you revisit it because you're frozen in time. But with that gossip, it changes ever so slightly. So with Will and you, the way you both would have remembered it without coming together and doing that restorative justice would have been exactly that. It would have changed ever so slightly every time. So the intensity of the emotional charge may have been higher every time you remembered it. And for you as well, the guilt, the shame, whatever it was. But when you come together, you resolve so much of that frozen in time because you're sort of desensitizing to the original event. And then you're also reprocessing the information together. So it actually changes the way the memory is held in the brain. So from a brain-based perspective, it's such a powerful thing to do, not just the emotional side of that, but also the way the brain processes the information.
When I meet with Will, I feel that I still, apart from liking him and enjoying his company and getting on, he takes the piss out of me. Yeah, he does right. I actually feel I owe that man.
Yeah.
Massive amounts.
Yeah.
I do.
Does he understand though? Does he understand that you genuinely believed, being the type of character you are, that you genuinely believed that you were doing the right thing?
Yes.
That it wasn't just you being a bully?
He says he would have done the same.
Well, there you go.
That's what Will says. How about that?
Yeah.
He said he doesn't blame me because he was led to believe that, I was led to believe that he had done it and,
For those that don't know, what was he supposed to have done?
Put a knife
that was the one, yeah.
Put a knife to a girl and a baby. And in actual fact, he convicted me. He said, Kevin, it wasn't a knife to a baby and a girl. It was a knife to the lady's belly where she had a baby inside her. I said, I'll cut you and I'll cut your baby.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty hardcore.
That's pretty hardcore, isn't it?
Yeah, and, I mean, no one ever wants to think about that.
Yeah, but then that could quite be where I've got, over the years, it's gone from cut you and cut your baby.
It could be that
and
thing.
And then I'm picturing a baby there instead of baby in a belly.
Yeah.
So over the time of years, that's how it's evolved. But however, at the time, I probably would have been told that she was a pregnant woman who had been threatened to be cut. Yeah. Because they wouldn't have got that fact wrong.
Yeah.
Because it came from very close sources to her work colleagues and the boss of the company who she worked for. So she would have been pregnant, so she didn't have a child at the time. But as you just stated there, that's how things evolve.
Yes, it is.
And they changed. But
and everyone, every time you tell that story, somebody else hears a different aspect to it as well. So even if you haven't changed the story per se, somebody else hears a different flexion of the story and tells the story differently to their mate in the pub.
Yeah.
So the story
exactly
becomes
right,
life of its own.
So the question was about that. I see Will, my homebrew.
Yes. Now, banged up, for anyone that didn't see it, which I'd be surprised if anyone hasn't.
Yeah, don't start. I know what you're referring to.
You know exactly where I'm going. But even with that little bit where, well, I'll let you tell the story in a minute.
Johnny Mercer.
Yes. I fell in love with you on that show.
Thank you
were
very much.
Absolutely brilliant.
Really? Oh, thank you.
You are so naturally funny anyway. Wow. But, because obviously this banged up with celebrities that were put in prison with real prisoners or people that had served time. And I imagine you were all staying in. You were supposed to stay in anyway.
We stayed in there.
Yeah.
In the cells as you see it.
Yeah. And there were some characters in there like you that you stole the show, clearly.
Well, thank you. It's maybe in some people's eyes, but thank you very much for that.
Well, I fell in love with you then. And
thank you very much.
Johnny Mercer, please explain the scene that I laughed
John's
at.
Great.
Yeah.
Johnny Mercer been to war with people who come from council estates, and he's been in the trenches with them. He was attached to the Special Forces. He was a commander.
Yeah.
Lovely man.
Yeah.
Was on the cabinet. So John has got some issues about no one likes to smell another man's excrement, does it? Don't smell
That's
nice.
Going in the trailer. Yeah. That line is going in the trailer.
And John wanted a cigarette, so I had a tube up my anal. And no, it wasn't staged. I'm going back into prison. I'm going to
do what you'd normally do.
What we do. I'll put it in the safe where it's safe. So I'll get strip searched. They can't put their finger up my backside, even with the doctor's permission.
Did I hear you say it was a cigar tube?
Yeah.
Flipping
Yeah,
heck.
cut down.
I was going to say, I mean...
I did it twice. So one with a cigar tube and one with like a nasal spray.
Right.
And a little tube, like I can't remember if it was nasal spray or it was a lip balm taken out.
So you used one of them as
so
well?
it's single skinners, SSs they're called, single skinners, Rizzlers, rolled up. And he said, I'm dying for a cigarette. They had the vapes, didn't they? Because you couldn't have tobacco on landings, you see.
That's right.
I said, do you want a cigarette? He went, yeah. I went, hold on a minute then. Nobody knew I was going to do that. There wasn't a single person in there, production or inmates or celebrities, who knew I had something stuck up my backside in the safe. And I have to say that I did do this for not authenticity, but for realisation.
Yeah.
When I pulled it out, normally I could have got it out a lot cleaner. I'd have kept it in tissue and just wiped off. But I pulled it out with a bit of excrement on it. And of course, the windows were shut. They had a plastic screen across them.
Oh,
no, it
God.
wasn't cracked, they were just shut. And Johnny Mercer he's got a bit of OCD, a massive OCD actually.
I remember it well.
And he smashed the windows, didn't he?
He did.
But I'll tell you something now. As much as he was going nuts about the smell, at the end of the day, he's gone, I don't smoke, right? And he's gone, I've had one with him.
Yeah.
And he looked at me. I said, oh, you're smoking it now, aren't you? You don't worry about the smell or nothing, do you? But he had menthol on it, because it came out of a menthol tube. That's right, I remember that now. And he said, what is this? It's all right, you like it, don't you?
Don't you worry yourself about what's in there.
That was the menthol, right? So we had a drink in there.
Yes, you did.
And I'm well known for drinking.
Yeah. That's your little bit of pleasure.
In prison, yeah. And I mean, I used to like to have a party, so we'd have a party, we'd all dance and stuff and come round and have a good time. And I believe if I hadn't released that, for all the years I was away, I wouldn't have come out the other end, as I did. Yeah. Because I've released that emotion where I'm crying with laughter.
Yeah.
Crying with laughter. Yeah. And I mean that.
Yeah.
You've got the best of the best and the worst of the worst in prison. Yeah. So I'd like people to be mindful of that. Yeah. Because someone's committed an act of criminal intent or crime, doesn't mean they're a bad person.
I mean, I think we're all capable of it. It's just whether we choose to do it or not.
Absolutely.
Someone hurts my child, I'm in prison.
What would you say? I'll kill him.
Yeah, I'm in prison.
There we go.
And that is someone that I would say, I think I'm fairly grounded. But someone touches my daughter, I will be in prison.
I made the drink, and we're talking about my brew that I make. So I've perfected that over 35 years.
I've heard some amazing things about this drink.
I'm sending you a bottle.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Something happened the other day, and there was a little it was filmed. I was filmed making it, so you can see it on YouTube soon.
A big channel, isn't it?
It's a big channel. I can't go into it because I don't want to.
You can't go ahead and say anything yet.
I don't want to just scupper what they're doing, but I was filmed making it, and then there was a wine tasting event put on with top critics of this country. These critics, my homebrew was put in amongst 5 other bottles, mine being the 6th, and I'll say no more.
OMG.
And I've had 4 breweries so far. I've had a wine critic come round my house, taste my alcohol, and I make a champagne one, I make a normal one that you can have in a can, I make one made with champagne yeast, one made with honeymead yeast, and
Kev!
Doing all this. Anyway, the gentleman from the brewery came round. He left 6 hours later, legless, with 2 bottles. That's a flagship drink, I'm telling you. He said, I can see that everywhere. Oh, no, I haven't had one person yet say they don't like it. And my 84-year-old Auntie Judy.
I've seen evidence of this.
Classy lady.
Yeah.
Drinking my hooch.
Yeah.
She said, oh, Kevin, that's lovely.
Aww.
And so it isn't like they drink in the prison.
You should call it Punch and Judy.
Punch and Judy. I'm going to call it Cheeky Chappers or Cheeky Ladies.
Oh, I love that.
So you might say, you're a cheeky lady. Yes, I'll have a bottle of Cheeky Chappers and Cheeky Ladies, please. I might call it Happy Hooch. I'm not quite sure yet, but I'm looking upon that. Yeah. I'm looking to get it branded. Well, I am getting it branded, and I'm in discussions. Yeah. So once this YouTube filming has come out and they go live with about what that bottle was that you're all talking about or not talking about, then or rubbishing or saying how great it was, I have had I've had a lot of views
Yeah.
on me, my hooch.
Yeah.
Everybody wants some. So I'm going to get you a bottle, and I guarantee you now, you're going to go, oh my goodness, Kevin. You do drink, I take it?
Of course.
Lovely.
I'm not a massive drinker, but if it's worth the drink, I'll have it.
This is a cheeky little bouquet, and you'll drink it in a sense where you go, oh, that tastes nice, Kevin. Or I haven't had one person yet that says they don't like it.
I mean, that's pretty good going,
I've had
isn't
Essex girls who've gone off to parties and took bottles of mine and got smashed on it and come back and asked for more. Solicitors, right across the board.
Everyone loves your hooch.
Love the booze.
And we saw this on the show, didn't we?
On the show.
Yeah.
And that was the basic brand.
Yeah.
Made from the pure juice. So I make it from pure juice and pure ingredients. I don't make it with water or squashed oranges or soaked bread and all the rest of it. I used to get my yeast, I'd make some orange juice go off, or I'd get pineapples. You get, do you know what is really good for kicking off booze? Tomato juice.
Really?
Excellent. Don't talk about the Marmite. Marmite's crap, I've got to tell you. The first booze I ever bleeding drank was from Marmite. It was this years ago anyway, but as long as it's got yeast in it, it will kick, or you can make your yeast from like orange juice going off and put sugar with it.
You're basically a scientist.
Well, not so much that. You learn how to make something. Prisoners are very ingenious.
I was going to say, because you kind of have to be, don't you? You have to find a way around it.
Yeah.
But you could be the Walter White of hooch. Have you seen Breaking Bad? Crystal meth guy.
Oh, God, blimey.
But he was the genius of crystal meth.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
You could be the genius of hooch.
I am. I've been perfecting this for years. So I make it with Demerara sugar. And the reason why I went over that, I studied sports nutrition in prison for 4 years, and I got distinction in it. I'm very proud of that.
Oh,
very
well
proud.
done.
I got 100% on some of my exams.
Amazing.
And that's 98%, 96 I think was the lowest I got.
And it's I mean, sports nutrition, there's a lot to it. People just think nutrition. No. This is science. It's really, really intense, isn't it?
You learn about the body, how it functions.
Yeah.
The brain.
Yeah.
I've forgotten a lot about it now because I did that in 2002. So I've not been using it. I only use it in conversation sometimes, and then things come back to me.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't you?
Yeah.
You're working yours every day. However, I realised that white sugar's got bleaching agent in it.
Yeah,
and
you're
I didn't
right.
want bleaching agent in my drink, so I made it from Demerara sugar. Nobody was making hooch out of Demerara sugar when I was in prison. Nobody.
You're just such a clean guy.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I want it with pure ingredients,
Yeah.
pure juices, not half and half.
Yeah.
I want all the real McCoy, and I'd make it from all fruits and juices and such, and I'd strain it off and let it settle, and I'd strain it again. But there's a saying, if it don't stick to your lips, it's a goer. That means there's no sugar in it, get it in ya. Because we don't want to lose it.
That's so good. I mean, honestly, if nothing else, these many years you've spent in prison, which is how much altogether now?
I've done 5 years in prison, and I've got to say to you, 3 years of those were for the recalls.
Yeah.
I got compensation for one. I was recalled wrongfully.
So you managed to turn that
Secretary of
around,
State released me and then chucked me out. And I did 2 months during COVID, ended up 14 and a half. Courts were shut, closed. So I did 14 and a half for 2 months.
Oh,
and which I
God.
did, I accept that.
Yeah, but
okay.
14 and a half months.
14 and a half months. And I did 14 and a half months this time for a maximum of a 6-month sentence.
Unbelievable.
There we go.
Yeah.
And again.
And then one that you didn't actually do.
Well, I didn't actually. Well, the big one.
Yeah.
Which is now, my case is going back to the Criminal Cases Review Commission.
Really?
It's already been, the application's been submitted. That will be on the basis of the Panorama programme, Last Chance for Justice.
Yes.
So all those who haven't seen it, go on
and
YouTube
watch it.
And the jury were led to believe that a gun had been placed in a bag that my print was found on. And it was found on after my arrest. And when I was released, my prints were taken twice. This bag was taken out of the exhibits room and it's got tags on it. So it has to sign when it's taken out. It's the only time in the exhibit book record that there's no signatures next to that bag.
How did this go this far then, with that in mind?
The criminal justice system, wheels of justice turn very slowly. So I didn't have a TV for 20 years and I worked on my case. And the reason being, I thought every letter I write is a step getting near that door.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because you wrote thousands of letters.
Over 10,000.
Over 10,000
Yeah.
letters.
That's why they call me Mr. Shawshank.
Yeah.
No one shagged me. And I didn't shag anyone else either.
For clarity,
Just
you didn't
for
shag
the
anyone.
point, yes. No, never.
Okay, on that note, just because I think that's a very interesting point you've made there. But yeah, 10,000 letters and, you know, many, many years of fighting to be able to show that you were innocent. And now we know this bit of evidence had never had a signature. So in itself, that's very, very suspicious. However, we know you didn't do it.
There's a lot more to it than that as well.
Go on.
The book goes into absolute detail. There's been no court order on my book, no black order to say you can't say this, you can't say that.
Doesn't that speak volumes? And the reason I say this is because I can't get hold of my my statement and the result of what happened with me and my dad. I can't get hold of the paperwork because when it was reported, which was 30 odd years ago, it was before they had the sex offenders register, and it was when everything was written on paper.
Yeah.
So then it's been computerized about 15 times since then. They've used different systems, so they've lost some of the details. Anyway, I spent some time trying to look for it. And then when I've gone on other people's podcasts talking about the story and I've mentioned that bit, some people, you know what people are like in the comments, so I don't believe her because, you know, I tell the story so confidently because I'm, you know, I've done so much work on myself.
Yeah.
And because of my job, I'm able to tell my own personal story without breaking down. And I try and tell it from an intellectual point of view rather than an emotional point of view. And people
you
said,
do.
Yeah, because you're a bit desensitized to your own story, aren't you, right? So people said, I don't believe her, whatever they've said. And I'm like, look, I've written a book about this. I've spoken about it on loads of different podcasts. I've spoken about it on my own platforms. If it wasn't true, do you not think the perpetrator would have taken me to court for slander? But of course, he's never going to do that because he'd have to reveal his identity. And he's never going to do that because he wouldn't want to be known, which is fair enough. And I don't actually want him to have to go through hell every time I talk about it. The reason I talk about it, well, yeah, because again,
if he's changed his life, if he's moved on.
And I don't want to bring
If
disarray.
he has, I'm saying.
He has, I believe, anyway. But that will stoke a lot of controversy that I've said that. But the point being is, it's the same with you. You've written a book. You've put the details in the book. No one's gone, right, get him back into court. This is absolute
Not
BS.
once.
And we know then that something somewhere is inherently wrong.
And this is attention to detail in that book.
Yeah.
Everything that is in my book has come from agencies within the criminal justice system.
Wow.
I'm on about CPS, courts, prisons, police stations. The person who's mentioned in my book, or this person's in my book, that it's all factual, and I've never been asked to redact it or change it. It's factual. And it's very powerful. And when people turn around and say, Given, I've had to pick it up and read it again immediately.
Yeah.
Have a look at the reviews on Amazon.
I bet they do, because honestly, I said at the beginning of the episode, I've had to watch so many episodes of yours because the detail of the story, and I know we haven't actually done too much of the story today, but it's because you've done it so many times. I really wanted to find out more about what you think about the systems and how you think now as a result of your experience today. But I'll keep pushing people back to Liam because I know you've spoken more about the story there. But you do want to watch it more than once. So you do want to read it, I'm sure, more than once, because it's mind-blowing.
I don't make much money out of these books.
No.
I've only just started making a little bit of money, a couple of quid here and there.
That's right.
So
you
I
don't
donate to
do you sell it
charities.
on Amazon?
Amazon. So here we go to all those people that think life's so cushy. I got recalled to prison in February 2024. I was 8 days late returning my tax returns.
That's what you got recalled for?
No, in 2023.
Right.
Somebody who had access to my accounts and such and my emails dissolved my company. As a result of dissolving my company, when I've come out this time, the bank account that was attached to, I started using.
Yeah.
And I was allowed to use it.
Yeah.
With my card and such.
Yeah.
The account's now been frozen. And so Amazon can't make a payment into there, so they weren't trading with the books. The only place you can buy a book from now is Kevin Lane Books.
You're joking.
Yeah, and Publish Easy, which is Waterstones, I think it was 20 orders last couple of weeks ago in 1 month, just from them. They've not been able to sell any books, so I've got to rectify that. And Amazon, it said it's got it down as a bestseller.
So they've got to go to Kev Lane Books to get it?
KevinLaneBooks.com.
Right. And we'll put that on the link.
If you go there, I get a chance to, they come by me and I will sign them and write them. I'm pucker my lips up and put some.
I wanted to ask you another question, but I've just heard the doorbell and I think it's your mate.
Mr. Marcus.
I think he's at the door. So hold that thought. I want to ask you about the love, the shagging and not being shagged.
Okay then. Okay then, thank you.
And then we'll finish.
Okay.
He's had a roast dinner and everything.
Oh, yeah, he likes his food.
He's had 2 pints and a roast dinner.
Good cook.
Now, next question then, the final one, because I think this will be good to end on. That just shows you my mindset. And Marcus will come downstairs in a moment. That he won't want to be on camera, but oh yeah. So you said you didn't do any shagging. Now, for me, pull that in, otherwise they won't hear. For me, I've always wondered how that goes for a red-blooded male in prison, because we know that, you know, men need affection and love as much as everybody else. It's a very long time, Kev, to go without any love and affection. I mean, obviously, intimacy and affection can come in very different ways. Hugs, you know.
Do you know why you've just tapped on something I was going to say to you?
What's that?
Is that to carry? Because I don't want to cut across you.
No, you go.
Do you know why you see a lot of prisoners cuddle all the time?
Yeah.
They're starved of it.
Yeah.
And whilst they're starved of it, you can get conjugal visits in other countries, can't you?
Yes, you can.
It does so much more for keeping people's minds stable.
Yeah.
It's a natural hormone that's then taken away from you in this country and seen as a punishment.
Yes.
Now, I could have slept with several prison officers during my sentence, and I never did.
Wow.
Not once. But the reason being was because when I was held in the special security units, prison within a prison, I thought, my God, if I go with that bird and get caught, because prisoners watch you, they can see how you're looking at each other, you can see how you're behaving.
Because they've got time to watch as well. So they're going to be hyper-focused.
Now, if you was walking about the bleeding landings, you're going to be swarmed with men.
Yeah.
Who are, unfortunately, like you say, it's in your blood.
Yeah.
And then I was subject to that myself in terms of I realised how I was behaving because I had time to think in myself because I didn't have a TV.
Yeah.
I thought, my God, I'm pulling myself away from that.
Yeah.
You know, showing a lady a lot of attention because she's being nice back to me and all the rest. I thought, my God, do you not realise what you're doing? So I was able to see myself through the mind's eye. However, I also thought that if I was to have a relationship with a prison officer and got caught, they'd say, why is Lane messing about with a prison officer?
Yes.
Is it because he wants to get his leg over or they like each other?
Yeah.
Or is it because he wants to get out of prison?
So it could go two ways, couldn't it, the story?
To let him come down home.
Here he is.
Yeah.
No, don't sit there. Sit in there in the comfy room. That's it. You're not on the film.
So in prison, if I'd have been caught sleeping with a prison officer, it would have been looked at very badly.
Yeah.
Why is he doing it? Is he doing it because he needs his leg over, or is he doing it because of an ulterior motive, which is to escape? And then I'd have gone back up the ladder to triple category A, which is exceptional risk. I was high risk for 10 years anyway, which is double category A. And I was category A for 16 years before I was released as a result of some paperwork that was sent to my solicitor from an anonymous source that caused the prison directorate to be standing outside my cell in Franklin saying, is that right, what we've heard about this paperwork, Kevin? I said it is. And I was downgraded immediately and chucked out of high security estate case I was released from the prison.
My goodness.
Yeah. But then going back to a bit to the sexual stuff.
Yeah.
Prisoners cuddle themselves, they hug because they're starved of affection.
Yeah.
hug, hug, hug.
Well, we release oxytocin, don't we, when we hug, which is a bonding chemical, but it also makes us feel nice.
They know it's great. They reckon it's good for therapy.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there is actually cuddle therapy out there.
There is now, but it wasn't when I was in prison.
No.
But I've been saying it for years, and I might even mention it in my book about why people cuddle. So I was saying this for a long time because I had a lot of years to think about things, why people do things. I studied inmates. I studied people's behaviour in my head in prison. So I didn't get through 20 years in prison. I had a lot of altercations, but for the right reasons, I would say as well.
Yeah.
Staff knew that. They said, Lane don't pick on people. He normally fights the arseholes. And he's good for the land and he's good for morale.
Well, you're the protector. Honestly, it starts when you were a little boy with your brother.
Yeah, okay, but there's a lot of protectors as well.
Yeah.
I wasn't the only one in there doing it, but I did realise pretty soon that I was one of few that was fighting or
for the
prepared
right
to fight. Yeah,
John Wayne again, isn't
shipped
it?
around the prison system a lot,
Yeah.
or suffering as a result of being morally right. However, you're starved of these affections, and one of them is love and affection. So I would cuddle. I'll sleep in a bed and I would cuddle a pillar, but I had a budgie. That budgie gave me...
I've had a budgie as well. I love a budgie.
He could say more sentences than I can remember, my budgie.
Well, mine wasn't very good.
Tamest budgie I've ever had.
Did you have a budgie in prison?
In my cell.
What
for
sort of
years.
budgie was he? What colour?
Blue.
I had a blue, but it was called Bobby Dazzle.
Bobby I called mine.
We both had a Bobby.
Yeah, and then Joey I had. Joey and Bobby. I had two.
I had a Bobby Dazzle. He had
Did
two
ya?
names. Yeah, because
How
I used to
about
love
that?
Bobby Davro.
Oh, yeah, he's great.
I couldn't call the budgie Bobby Davro, so I called him Bobby Dazzle instead.
I'll tell you a story about Bobby Davro and me. So I had a budgie and a budgie would interact with me. So when he would eat, I'd go, nice, nice. So when I would eating, the only time he ever said it, when I ate something, he'd go to me, nice, nice.
Aww.
Is that not interaction? I don't care what people say.
That is, I love it. I love budgies. I was devastated when mine died. He was such a lovely little chap.
Why would he only say that when I ate, though? If that's not human. And he'd come and sit on me. He'd sit on my chest. He'd sit on my shoulder. He'd try around my throat and put his beak on my to get the tones. Because all he wanted to do was learn to speak.
Oh, my God.
And he'd say so much. And the only time he ever bit me is if I tried to take him away from my hooch.
Give me some more.
He'd bite me aggressively.
Like a pirate and a parrot.
He was on my shoulder. He used to go to other people's shows to fly about the landings, back and forward.
Did he?
Back and forward and come in, fit his budgie, because he was always out. He used to fly about and then come and land on you. But let me tell you about Bobby Davro.
Yeah, please
So
do.
I got released and it's in that book there. And in that book you'll see a picture of me ringing a bell. And it's to let the people, the jockeys know they've got to get on the horses and all the rest of it. So I'm standing there. Bobby Davro, this is at Sandown. And I was asked to ring the bell, like I say. So Bobby Davro's over there with his wife and someone showing him around. I had a mic in my hand, which was connected to the stadium. And I've been asked some questions and that. And I've gone, all right, Bobby? He's going, no, he's gone, I've got a bit of lettuce stuck between my teeth. I went, I've got a bit stuck between the cheeks of my arse.
As well as all sorts of things that we've seen on
He burst out laughing. Of course, he was on the mic. It went all around the stadium. Yeah, Bobby Davro.
God.
But prison is starved of love and emotion.
Yeah, it
okay?
is. It is, I know.
Unfortunately, in the summer, testosterone levels go up high.
Yeah.
More violence in prison.
Yeah.
But what are you taking away from people when you're starving them of that human emotion?
It's very difficult, isn't it? Because, I mean, we know that I always say this to women that struggle to understand why their men look at other women. And I'm like, look, what you don't realise is women, you see, we produce hormones in both ovaries and adrenal glands. So progesterone, estrogen. Men only produce their hormones in their testicles, right?
Right, I didn't know that.
And it's like a whole sperm factory going on there. So there's hundreds of thousands of little swimmers being produced every day. And obviously the biology of a man is that
Reproduce.
historically, yeah. So as a hunter, you would see a female and impregnate the female. That was the point. So you were always prepared for that moment. So now, again, innately embedded in the psyche of a man and in the biology of a man, if you see a pretty lady, to notice, and then the body has a reaction if it's not controlled. So then going into prison where that whole situation is now blocking the natural biology of a man, does that then mean, because I mean, what you explained there with, I'm not going to have sex with the prison officers because it could be looking like I'm manipulating the situation to the other prisoners and what is he after?
Grooming, they call it.
Grooming, yeah. or I could end up being in a lot of trouble. For some reason,
I'd love to have had my leg over.
I bet you bloody would.
Bleeding Nora.
I bet it was on your mind quite a lot.
Hey,
But
might not been for very long.
2 minute Kev.
Bleeding hell. Fastest 2 minutes of my life.
But your intellect seemed to take over your natural drive. Whereas for other men, we know that's probably not so easy. So they might have little affairs with other men while they're in prison.
They do.
Because
a lot of men do, because
they can't hold back.
Yeah, you got Reggie Quay, Ronnie Quay, both of them had relationships in prison.
Yeah.
And lots of other people still do now and did then.
Yeah.
But they come home and they don't continue it.
From my perspective, just looking at that, obviously I don't assume that man is gay. I believe that man is desperate for sex, right? That now there may be some people that are doing that are gay. So I'm not trying to say there isn't. But I think
if you get a pretty looking man.
Yeah.
What about if you've got a grotesque geezer and no teeth?
Right? Even I'd struggle with that, and I'm a heterosexual female.
There's a prisoner. Good job I'm not allowed to mention their names because I've done it before, but I won't mention his name now because it's changed.
Yeah.
He used to like men's penises to be dirty.
I heard you say this. Who did you say this on?
He would go down on them.
That's absolutely
and that was
disgusting.
But that was his turn on. So oh God. But anyway, you get, so there's different types.
Do you know what that must be? That must be a past trauma. I laughed and did the sick sound for a reason because that did make my stomach turn.
But I find that repulsive.
But that has got to be linked to a past trauma. There is no way. You think of all fetishes. All fetishes start with something you've experienced in your life at a time before you can analyse it and make sense of it. I wouldn't mind betting that.
But then you've got other people in the prison. Probably you're obviously right. That's your expertise
I'm
area.
not saying I'm definitely right, but it's a theory.
But it's a good theory from where you're sitting.
Yeah.
There's men in prison can be quite feminine.
Yes, I can imagine. Yeah.
Okay, so
trans.
Oh yeah. Now I've got to tell you, bleeding hell. I have said in the past before I got released, and then when I have got released, I said if I got another sentence now, I'll get a pair of tits and get over a woman's neck.
I don't know if you'd look good with a pair of boobs.
Oh, I don't give up. I've got a pair of boobs now, really, but I'd get over there now, pair of pecs, and they give you a tablet now to stop the reactions and stuff. Well,
yeah.
Well, I wouldn't bleed and take it, would I? Swallowed it, Gov.
Well, this is actually part of what everyone's worried about, isn't it?
Well, I mean, you'd never think that would happen, would you? And all this crap. Like, I've seen fellas walking along prisons now dressed in stockings and suspenders. I didn't know if you had suspenders. You had stockings on.
Yeah.
And you had a short skirt on, shortish skirt, because you're not allowed to wear short skirts in prison, but you had a skirt on. I've seen them in dresses. I've seen them with boobs. I've seen them with
real
wigs.
Boobs or just stuff in there?
Stuff in there. I've seen fellas with boobs who have had the hormone treatment replacement.
So they're growing little boobies.
Yeah. I see a Spanish fella some years ago, woman, and I see him walking. I was gym orderly, and he come in, and he was on the protection wings. I thought, oh my God! I said, fucking hell, like you can't look at him, like. And a relative of mine, a relation through marriage, he said, when you look at one bum, they're all the same. And I remember thinking, he's so right. Because I wouldn't have known that as a fella unless someone had told me.
Wow.
Because he had a figure, he had his tits, he had the lot done, he had his boobs done, his breasts, and he had long hair, he had a little wiggle. I swear.
So in prison, say on the outside a man would go, not on your life. In prison it changes if you're there
in
for
prison
a long time.
They might go, definitely. 100%. Pal of mine, he went down the healthcare, and the healthcare had a trans down there. Mm. And he said, my God, Kevin, he's pretty. And he's got a figure on him to die for. He goes, I've looked at him and looked at him. And I said, well, I would stop looking at him if I was you. We're laughing about it. He said, well, I keep looking and thinking, how can that be? It's unreal. Yeah. So they're putting temptation in the way of men that might be susceptible to that.
Yeah.
Where's the prison system going with all of this?
It makes no sense because ultimately, if there's no rights, as you say, in America and places like that, they have that so that they can have their moment with their partners or their wives. and then they're putting trans male to female people in the prison, it's going to be very tempting and a bit, you're going to get it all inside the prison, which again makes no sense.
Segregate them and separate them. I don't want to be known as a tree. I don't want to be known as a frog. There was a fellow in the prison I was in. He wanted to be known as a cup. I would have said a mug.
Wanted to be known as a cup.
No, you're a mug. Like, I shouldn't say that to all those, but either way, I mean, come on. Where are we going with this? I do not want any kids of mine or my son to be brought up thinking it's nice to be known as a bleeding tree. Not on your Nelly.
No.
Not at all. Let's get real with it, for God's sake.
It is a bit strange.
It's gone nuts. I mean, in your profession, I don't know what you make of it, but I know what I make of it, and I don't think it's right.
Well, I happen to think, and there's lots of sort of conversations around this now. There's a lot of people that are autistic and traumatized, that are gender dysphoric or unsure of their identity. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's maybe because you're in a difficult place.
And I think the problem is that, yes, you're right. And I think that difficult place needs to be looked at and supported properly. But again, we've touched on the systems of everything. The systems are so broken that nothing's getting looked at properly. And I feel like the pharmaceutical industries like to put a plaster on something and do that. So what happens is if someone says, and again, this has been stopped now in this country, but if someone says, I feel a certain way, as long as you do like a few hours worth of counselling, they go, okay, well, you can have these tablets. These are puberty blockers. This is very controversial. I know, and then there's irreversible damage done for some people.
I think I've had irreversible damage done to me a few times by a few women. But my heart, they have. I got to tell you.
That's going to be another 3 books after the next one.
Yeah, I'm bleeding now. I should write a book about that.
You should do a Jilly Cooper style book.
What's that? I was talking about doing a book, actually.
A bit erotic.
Yes. Black Velvet.
That's what you should do. A whole series of Kev Lane erotic fiction.
So I was going to be interviewed by Sheridan, a friend of mine, and she used to get me horse riding lessons on. Well,
this is very Jilly Cooper. A lot of her sort of stories were about horses and things like that.
She wanted to interview me about how to pull a bird. I said, I don't pull birds, I just have a laugh with them.
Aww.
I just have a laugh and go out and enjoy their company and get to know them and have a right good laugh.
Yeah.
And then if we enjoy each other that much and we like each other up, we'll end up in bed.
It's that simple.
And it's as easy as that. But if we ain't, we've had a great night.
Yeah.
And we respect each other for it. I'm not trying to talk her into bed.
Yeah.
It's we've had a fantastic time, enjoyed each other's company, and that's where we've ended up.
What did you say earlier? Bing, bing, bong, bing.
Bing, bong, bing, yeah. But, yeah, I didn't get that from The Sopranos either. It just come out of my head there. But you understand the point I make is be yourself, have a laugh, and respect that person and be genuine and look at them in the eyes. And then I think that if you have a great time and enjoy someone's company and you're truthful, then if you fancy each other, because I believe if someone fancies you and you fancy them, don't matter who they are, politicians, professionals, I'll say Lady Diana. Look, Lady Diana's had some boyfriends that you would never think she's had.
Yeah, true.
But whether you're an A-list actor or you ain't, if you click, you click.
Chemistry will be chemistry.
And then you're doing the horizontal shuffle.
You're so old school.
If you can.
If you can.
So,
if you've still got it in you.
If you've still got the 9 bob, well, I won't say the 9 mile run. I think it's a 5 mile run, isn't it? What they class it as now?
Not in your world. It's a 9 mile. There you are saying you'd only last 2 minutes. Then you've gone
that
to
was
9
then.
miles.
I'm talking about now.
Things have changed.
Even now might be the 2-minute run.
Well, look, I mean, this episode has been a little bit different to some of the others. Although I know in every episode I've seen, you've had a bit of a laugh with people. That does seem to be what you carry with you throughout.
Yeah, I like
interviews.
a laugh. It's been a bit more serious at times, but you have to have a laugh. If you don't laugh, it costs nothing to smile, makes you feel good.
It really does. I mean, I think that's what gets us all through it. You said in prison, drinking your hooch and laughing so much. You said that's what got you through. I believe that's what's got me through most of my life, is just my ability to laugh at pretty much anything. I find laughter is genuinely the greatest medicine.
If you smile, you will feel a hormone released in your body.
That's so true. Yeah.
It definitely works.
I mean, I tell this story quite often. People used to talk about laughter therapy, right? And I used to think, what a load of rubbish. It's just a mad bint, you know, making money out of people. So I went along to one of these things once, and honestly, I've never laughed so much in my life. I felt great, because the minute someone laughs, even if it's a fake laugh, it sounds so funny that you end up laughing at it. And then before you know it, 3 or 4 people are laughing. Before you know it, 50 people are laughing. Everybody is laughing their heads off. How can you not feel great? It's the best thing that you can do.
I do know someone who went on it with their mum and their sister.
What, to a laughter thing?
Yeah, and they were crying with laughter.
It's so funny.
But they are that way inclined. They're very humorous girls anyway. And but she loved it.
Yeah, so much fun. Honestly, that for me, I think if people focus more on making each other laugh than anything else, I think the world would be a better place. Laughter is the best medicine.
I like the old slapstick or comedy.
Yeah.
We've taken it away from our country again. Then if you were to play in Death to Us Part, Part with Alf Garnett, and he had the black gay home help, didn't he?
Yeah.
They show some clips where they have to keep doing retakes.
They're laughing so much.
They are crying with laughter. They should do a series with them doing the retakes.
Yeah, they should.
And show how they are laughing, and there's no malice with what they're saying, to show how people can come together. Because if you are good in you've got goodness in your heart, then that's all you need.
Well, look at the shows.
Horrible.
Then you had Fawlty Towers. You had, which again,
Upstairs, Downstairs.
All of that.
Love Thy Neighbour.
And Frank Spencer.
Frank
obviously.
Spencer, all Betty and
all that stuff.
Cat's done a whoops on the carpet. I mean, what's wrong with that?
Honestly, there were some great shows back then, but you don't see good sitcoms anymore. I think the last of the good sitcom really was Ricky Gervais when he did The Office, which was very different, but it was based on the
Only
format.
Fools and
Horses, of course. But we've lost it. We haven't got any of that left anymore.
No, we have lost it. But you, why is it the Irish and the Scottish, they still take the piss out of themselves?
Yeah.
Got a great sense of humour. They tell jokes about themselves.
Yeah.
The Irish do. Come on, you got to applaud them, haven't you?
Yeah.
Fantastic sense. I love going out with my Irish pals.
Yeah.
The best crack.
Yeah.
And they make me laugh my bleeding tits off.
You keep talking about tits, Kev. I'm really starting to think that you really want some.
I've got a pair in the car. I'll put them on when I leave here.
Oh, I can't thank you enough for being here today.
Oh, you're welcome.
It's
Thank you.
been so much fun. I mean, considering the topic.
Yeah, sometimes I would like to make it a little bit more light-hearted. However, I'd just like to say to people, and get this now, prison doesn't work, and anybody who thinks they're going to go to prison for an easy time, you're going there for a hard time, and it ain't easy.
Not anymore, like you say. The landings are a different thing now. It's not what it was. Even prison isn't what it was 20 years ago.
No,
Life has
they're
changed.
violent places now.
Yeah.
They were violent before, but there's hundreds of deaths a year in prison now.
Yeah.
Hundreds of deaths.
Yeah.
Let's get that right.
Yeah.
Not one every 9 years or every 3 or 4 years or 2 here and there. Hundreds of deaths. The violence has gone through the roof.
Yeah, it's not good.
20 knives were delivered by a drone, at a cost of a few £1,000s. 20 knives. 9 of them were flick knives. What are these young kids? And the young kid said to me, it's the power. And I said to the kid, you're going to do a long time in prison because of that power. I said, give your head a shake, mate.
It's so sad.
Come on.
Really got to look at, as a serious note before we end, we really have got to look at like what's happening with kids now. It's so, I know we've all, as you get to a certain age, past 45, everyone says, oh, we've really got to look after the kids. But honestly, the county lines issues, the knife issues, the way that you can get knives in prison, drugs in prison, spice, all these things that you've spoken about today, the way that, you know, the sort of system in prison isn't run the way it used to be, old school values, all of that's gone. It's very violent, it's very dangerous, it's not going to solve any problems. And like you said earlier, these people are coming back out
Put them straight in the army.
Yes.
Get in there, end of, whether you like it or not, you're going in there.
Yeah.
Get on with it. Want to be known as a tree, you're going in there and all.
Or a cup. You're definitely going in.
Or a mug.
And you're not coming out.
You ain't coming out. Yeah, get in there. That'll sort you out. Yeah, when bullets are coming flying across your head, maybe, but you're either going not so much you got to go to war, but you're going in the army and you're going to do a job again that you haven't got to go on the front line.
Yeah.
Or if you're doing a life sentence, you say, do you want to sign up in the army and go in the army? Or do you want to go to prison?
Yeah.
I'll sign up.
Yeah. Well, actually, if these kids that were stabbing each other were told, right, you're going straight into the army, the minute that you do that, that is it. You're going straight into the army and you ain't coming out. Again, with people, they're probably not best put in the army, but there needs to be you do that, you're not coming out. That's it, you're done. You'll be medically castrated, you'll be put with other sex offenders and you're never coming out.
You wouldn't want to keep kids in there who've made a mistake for stabbing someone for the rest of their life.
No, but I think army maybe. But you tell them that they're not coming out, and if they do well, if they prove themselves, that's reviewed. But you say to them...
Well, you go in there for the time your sentence is.
Yeah.
And if they think that you've redeemed yourself and proved to be a man and changed your way of life by true behaviour and saving lives and putting your life at jeopardy.
Which, let's face it, as we grow up, we change, don't we? If you're 14 when you've committed your first crime, I just think they need to be scared, because they're not scared. Well, actually, that's probably not true. They're not scared once they get accustomed to youth offenders and, you know, they become...
Yeah, they're not then part of the bigger firm in there.
I think they're probably scared when they go in, but then it doesn't take long for them to find their feet. But if they were going into the army, I think that would be... Why, again...
Make a man of them.
Yeah, it would.
Make a man of them. And mature them very quickly.
Yeah, it would.
And they'd learn respect and they'd learn a trade. They learn a skill.
Yeah.
And they learn life skills.
Yeah.
And they learn what life's all about. One life, live it.
Yeah.
Don't throw it away and waste it.
I couldn't agree more.
And that's what they do when they go to prison. They waste their lives. Unless you can come out of prison and use it to your advantage. But a lot of people don't. But either way, it's a waste of bloody life.
It is, yeah. I agree. And what's good to see is that you are having these conversations still, despite the fact that you've been recalled recently and you could have just given up on this whole thing, but it's good to see you back.
I'm not. I'm going to keep championing the cause to keep people out of prison.
Yeah.
Men's mental health, women's mental health, all those charities and such like that support them. There's a lot of good to be done out there. If you genuinely like doing it, I'll do a charity round. I've got to go back to that now and start that again in a minute now. I've been doing that for some 2.5 years before I got recalled. And I love getting kissed with old women with no teeth. I don't care what they say about you on telly, Kevin.
Well, I've only heard good things about you. Yeah. So as a final, if you can see that, fit it up, and fighting back, kevinlane.com.
Kevin Lane Books.
kevinlanebooks.com.
Yes.
That's where you can find it. Please go and get it. Please share this episode with everybody because it's important and it's been so much fun.
Thank you very much.
Aww.
It's been a pleasure.
So much fun.